Hi, this is Amy.
Hey, this is Brian.
And Shelby.
And you're listening to the Hyperspace
PodBlast. Aren't you a little short for a podcast?
Huh? It's Hyperspace PodBlast time!
That was okay.
Yeah.
So who do we have today, Brian?
We have with us from the hashtag 365, now I forgot what it is. Is it Star Wars Women?
I know. I always forget it too. It's 365 Star Wars Women. That's
okay. That's what I thought.
It's
I was
long.
going to say it, and then I was like, you're going to be wrong. Don't be wrong. But I was right, like usual.
Oh my god.
So, Amy, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for coming on. If anyone maybe isn't familiar with hashtag 365 Star Wars Women, why don't you break it down for us? Tell us sort of in general what it's all about.
Sure. Well, basically, I decided for, some crazy reasons, very last minute at the end of 2017, that I wanted to kind of profile one Star Wars female character or a writer or an actress or anyone kind of in the Star Wars universe, from the comics, from books, from legends, like all the full Star Wars universe, a day. And it was going to be just a simple Twitter shout out. And then a couple days before New Year's, my husband was like, you should just have a website so you can like put extra information in there. And I'm like, yeah, I should do that. And then it got, to be too much, a little bit up too much.
Things have a way of doing that.
Yeah. In a good way. But,
yeah, for sure.
But basically it's like one day, every day profiling one Star Wars woman.
I like how you put it, the full Star Wars universe. I think that's a really succinct, nice way to say it. And it's not like you don't have to go through,
it's canon, and it also has legends, and it has other things.
It's just the full universe.
I got some pretty funny messages when I announced the project right at the end of 2017, where people are like, are you doing legends? Are you going to include legends? And I was like, I am, I've gotten a couple messages from people like, well, like, if you don't have this person from legends, like, blah, 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 blah.
You should just
and
quit
I'm like,
now.
Well, they're on June, blah, blah, blah. So, haha.
Oh, nice.
So where did this idea come from? What inspired you to start this project? I know you said it kind of started out small and kind of grew from there, but what was the catalyst?
Well, the very beginning of it was that I just basically wanted to write more in 2018. Like, I'm really bad at pushing off my own writing and not prioritizing it. I need deadlines. And so for me, like, having something every single day is actually helpful. But I had done for Fangirl Blog, and I'm still doing it as movies come out, breaking down all the movies, just the feature films, and doing screenshots of all the women that are in those films. So from the largest characters to the smallest characters in the background, kind of, looking at all of them and seeing how, every movie kind of progresses with female representation. And I felt like I had a whole bunch of information from doing that series, but I kind of wanted to put it to use in some way or kind of explore some, some aspects of the things that I found a little bit more. And so that's kind of how this just kind of ended up.
Right on. So you had amassed this data bank, and you're like, must share with world.
Yeah. I must do more.
Yeah, fandom has a way of rolling downhill like that, I tell you what.
Well, I really, really like the details of Star Wars. I like the very random details. I like how it's interconnected. I like how sometimes things don't connect up perfectly. Like, that never bothers me. Like, I'm totally fine in general with plot holes. Like, I just love Star Wars. And so I'm very, very forgiving. But
Same.
I love the details of Star Wars. Like, I like knowing what the alien names are, and I like knowing what the creatures' names are. Like, I like all of these things. And so for me, this is just kind of a fun way for me to, really, it was an excuse for me to buy a whole bunch of Star Wars reference books. And so I just got like a subscription to Marvel Unlimited, so I can like do a whole bunch of comic book reading. And so,
Nice.
that's what my husband, I think, thinks this entire thing is. It's an excuse to buy more stuff.
It's a brilliant ploy. I like it. Yeah, I have a bunch of Star Wars RPG books that I've rarely used to play the RPG. I definitely use them for reference all the time.
I know all of those books are just really fun, to look through.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for someone like yourself and me to a lesser extent that really enjoys the facts and figures and details, as you said, behind things.
Yeah, I've been a Star Wars fan, my entire life, and I feel like I'm a pretty hardcore fan, but there's plenty of Star Wars materials that I have not read. Like, I started off reading some of the novels when they came out with like the Thrawn trilogy, but I didn't read all that much, so there's tons of that I haven't touched. I'm not a huge comic book reader. Like, I really only started reading comics like a year ago somehow. Like, I'm not sure exactly how that happened. So, for me, like, it's just, there's tons of stuff that I don't know about. There's plenty of these women that I have written about that I have never heard of, which is kind of fun and kind of nerve-wracking because I'm just, I'm always convinced that people are going to, like, correct me, aggressively correct me online.
Assert their fandom dominance.
Right. That's one of those unfortunate things.
That hasn't happened. So
that's good.
I love hearing
that. I'm happy about that. Like, and I've only received one or two, like, are you going to do like a 365 Days of Men, Star Wars? And I was like, I just ignore it. But I'm like, maybe I like the men too,
Yeah. Men are boring.
So,
trust me.
Amy, what would be your dream outcome of this project? Is it a combination of you writing more, being more consistent? Is it bringing more awareness to how many women there are in the Star Wars universe? What is this, if you could pick one outcome, what would it be?
Well, I want to pick two. I want to pick a selfish one, and I want to pick a selfless one. Like, my selfish goal is that, like, if someone was like, hey, you know a lot about Star Wars, you love Star Wars, like, do you want to write this Star Wars reference book? Like, yes, I do. Like, that would be, like an ideal kind of like, thing that, happened from this. I'm already pretty excited because I'm joining up forces with the documentary Looking for Leia. They became aware of this project and asked me if I would do some research for them to kind of like delve into, to help with them with some like little aspects of the documentary. So that's already kind of one amazing thing for me that has happened from starting this project. But then really like my selfless goal is that I would just love it if, women or girls of really any age who just kind of felt like Star Wars wasn't for them, or if they're like told that like Star Wars is not for girls, like, why are you liking this? If they could just find it and look at it and be inspired by it, and really like, especially by the writers and, the artists and the producers who have worked on these films, just kind of, feel like, yes, I can do this. Like, these are women that have done what I want to do. That would be great.
Yeah, I like that you're taking not just characters from within the universe, but the people that create or work with those characters. It's really, when I first read about this, I think I found it on Twitter. I thought it was going to be just Star Wars female characters. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Then I started getting into what you'd been doing and saw that there were some actual contributors. And I was like, oh, this is actually even cooler than I thought.
Agreed. To highlight those people that, to see all the women who have touched Star Wars in some way it's incredibly inspiring to see.
Yeah, and it's fun for me too, because I really like, I was like, how many women have written, Clone Wars episodes or the comics, or, how many, like I had, you just don't, those are things that, like you just don't really know until you look for it. And so I'm learning quite a bit about that on the way. And I'm pretty excited because I have a few people who have agreed to do interviews, who work on various aspects of the Star Wars universe. And so I'm very, very excited. I'm hoping that they will return the questions that I sent them. But I was very, very excited to have that kind of original content too, of these people, because I think it's, it's fun to kind of share. It's fun to share that with other Star Wars fans, with other women. Like, it's just kind of fun to share your love of Star Wars, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And side note, that's really cool that you're part of the whole Looking for Leia team, because we had Dr. Ophelion on earlier in the year, and she is literally amazing.
She is. No, I mean, it's very funny because, when I was like, oh my gosh, like when I saw the trailer, like you were 4 when A New Hope came out. I was 4 when A New Hope came out. I was like, oh wow, but yeah, no, I've just started doing some research, and I'm very, very excited to be involved with it. I think that it just is it's a great project, inspiring project. And, I never felt comfortable being, geeky or dorky, like when I was, in my 20s. And I love seeing all of these younger women just like go to these conventions and just rock it out and, you know, just enjoying everything and like not feeling like you have to hide your, you know, Star Wars t-shirt in the closet. Like, I love that.
Yeah, right. Like a girl at any sort of geek related thing when I was younger was like, oh, a rare Pokemon has appeared. Everyone would just kind of like taking a breath and like, is that really a girl? I think it is. Guys, I think that's a girl. Should we talk to her? No, don't scare her.
I mean, it's ridiculous because like there's always been plenty of female Star Wars fans, but so many of us felt like we were alone.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a very widely shared sentiment. And I'm glad, like you said, that it doesn't appear to be that way at all anymore.
Yeah. And I don't think like, you know, it's interesting because of the internet, like we'll never know like how, you know, it's hard to know exactly how many women were Star Wars fans in some ways, like in the 70s and 80s, because like it just isn't as easy to, you know, track the photos and all of that stuff. Like, but I think that that's one kind of exciting thing I'm looking forward to is, you know, delving back into Star Wars history and kind of seeing, you know, how female, you know, women were always there, but maybe not really, you know, appreciated or celebrated.
All right, so back to your project. How are things going so far? Logistically, like how far do you plan out? Are you done? Like, do you have the whole year ready? Or?
Oh, no. I wish that I was. Actually, I feel like, so I do have a spreadsheet. I have a lot of the women, I have a lot of the big names spread throughout the year. So I don't kind of use all the good names. I mean, they're all good names, but you know, like I don't want to have.
Right, I get you, yeah. You have your headliners. I know what you're trying to say.
So, but it's not filled out. It is more than halfway filled out, I would think, but there's still, you know, some empty spaces. I have a whole bunch of lists of like, here are women from Canon Comics and here are women from, you know, Legends Comics and here are women from the Clone Wars. And I'm kind of in the process of slotting them in. But I wish I could say that I was like a month ahead. But the fact is that like this week, every single post I did the night before. And so like, you kind of like, I have been as much as a week ahead. But just depending on what is going on with my life, it kind of, you know, then slips. And then some women I need to research much more. Some women are pretty easy. So I'm hoping that I can get well ahead so I can kind of, you know, not be running around with my hair on fire. But I mean, I think that like, you know, I haven't missed a day yet and I was that's shocking to me. So.
Yeah, right on. We actually struggle with that sometimes too. There's times we always release the podcast on Monday and there's times we record on Sunday evening. So yeah, we know that life.
I will say that a lot of people have asked me, like, are you sure you have 365 women? And I am definitely sure that I have. There are 365 slots. Like, some of them, you know, might be very small characters, but a lot of times, like, I really like the small characters. And so, you know, part of me is, like, concerned that I'm going to go for such random characters and such random, you know, people that, like, then I'll forget, you know, Felicity Huffman, you know, or something like that.
Well, some of these small characters, I think the reason a lot of people resonate with them is because they're more of a blank canvas and you can flesh them out in your mind as much as you want. I think a lot of times in Star Wars, we get a lot of information about characters who are at the forefront. So when you have those characters that there's still that mystery about them, I think we really like that because then you can project whatever you want.
Right. And for me, growing up with the original trilogy, like every single woman that was in there was very, very, very special to me. You know, like I was like, oh, look at that woman in Hawk. Like, you know, like I was just, you know, all of that was, you know, I projected onto every single one of them. Like I will always love Ula, like way more than I probably ever would have loved Ula, like had I been born 20 years later, just because, you know, Ula was really like literally one of the only women there. And so, but doesn't everyone love Ula? Like poor Ula.
I know. True.
So, Amy, who is your favorite woman to date and why?
That's a hard question. I should have thought that you were going to ask me the question.
Oh, it's okay. Who are some highlights maybe that?
So the Naboo handmaidens were that is cheating. That's not one person, but I really did enjoy doing all the Naboo handmaidens. I became slightly obsessed with them when I did the breakdown post for the fangirl post. I really like Stas Ali. I don't even know if I don't know how you say any like Star Wars name, it turns out, if you say it out loud.
I pronounce everything wrong.
But I think that
everything.
Stas Ali was just today, actually.
Yeah,
No,
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I can't
But I had no idea
Galia.
that that was just confusing. Like there's a whole bunch of confusing things with the Jedi between The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and it turns out that between 2 movies, 3 different actresses portrayed Stas Ali, which is just hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know, like it was just like, I think they didn't think anyone would notice, and like that was the person who was available, and like, you know, and like there's just a whole bunch of different reasons. I thought that was interesting because I thought I learned a whole bunch of different things. Lumia, I don't know how you say it, who is like a Legends comic character. I had never heard of her. She uses a light whip as a weapon, and I'm like, how have I never heard of this woman? Like, that's awesome. I want a light whip. Like,
right?
Come on.
That's the first thing I thought of when I saw the Praetorian Guard with the whip in The Last Jedi. I was like, that's kind of like
that's
the light whip.
Yeah. No, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, but no. So like, the comics are the thing I think I'm going to enjoy the most, because that is the blanket slate for me, is, you know, both canon comics and Legends comics. I have not read a whole bunch of them, so I'm excited to dive into those.
Okay, so which lady that you have on your list so far are you most looking forward to bringing up to the public?
So overall, I would say that it would be the behind the scenes people. Like the women who, you know, like the different women in the story group, the different women who have written, you know, different episodes of the shows. I would say that is probably what I'm looking forward to the most. And then if my interviews come through, which I think that they will, I think that would be the best. I think that I hope I have enough time to really like do some research. There are, you know, women who worked in the costume department and who worked on modeling and stuff like that in the original trilogy, who I have never heard from. And I don't even know if there's like that much information to find on them, but I just feel like, you know, there weren't that many women at all who worked on the crew of those original trilogy films. And so I would really, really like to find whatever I can about them.
Right. Finding those trailblazers and featuring them, I think, is going to be amazing if you can do that. I'm so excited just thinking about it.
Like some of the, even like there was a Stormtrooper reference book that came out at the end of last year, and that has quite a bit of good information, that stories that I've never heard. So I'm hoping to find kind of more gems like that and share it with people.
Yeah, that's really cool. I imagine there's all kinds of stories out there just waiting to be uncovered. I think so anyway.
So I watched like the Return of the Jedi Creatures like making of documentary. I watched that, like, I think there were two different ones. I watched those like probably 100 times. Like if I probably more than that. Like I just love that. I watched them over and over and over again. But then I was like, I should watch that again. Like, are there any women in there? Like, you know, were there women who were in there? Like, I just don't know. Like, I mean, there could have definitely been, because I wasn't like looking for them before. But I'm, you know, talking of excuses of doing Star Warsy things, I'm like, I have an excuse to watch that. I haven't watched that since, you know, for like 30 years.
Lots of extra media consumption for research purposes.
Right.
Yes,
exactly.
Of course. Yeah. It's very important work I'm doing.
Yeah, you're also, I mean, talking about women in Star Wars, you're going to have to get that gaming console and play Battlefront 2, because there's a pretty stellar lady involved in there.
I know.
Actually, not to give the story away, but.
No, I, you know, because of something I wrote for an article, I ended up having to spoil myself for the storyline of Battlefront 2. And I have just started the campaign. I started the campaign, then I like totally got lost in, you know, regular real world stuff, and I want to go back to it, but I unfortunately do know how it ends. That has been happening. Actually, like that's what I struggle with this project, is I don't want to really spoil other people too much, but I'm constantly spoiling myself.
That's like a terrible double-edged sword right there.
Because I don't want to say something like completely inaccurate, and so I want to like try to get, you know, like the feel of like who this woman is and what was she in, and you know, all of that. And I'm like, eventually I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Maybe I'll forget that by the time I actually go back to read it.
Right?
Yeah, right on.
So I'm sure that you've gotten a range of responses to this. You've kind of spoken to that already, but what have been the highlights of those responses, or things that you really enjoyed hearing from people and engaging with people?
I just like the little notes that people have, you know, I've gotten some messages from people who have just said that like they really like look forward to this like every day, and like if I need help with research, like they'd be happy to help, which is just awesome. like, it's, that just creating something that people, say something like that is like really, really like that really makes me very happy. And really, I'm not really sure if I haven't gotten so much feedback from Twitter, if like I would still be as excited to do it. I feel like it really, like, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put it on Twitter, is because I feel like, that's kind of a communal kind of event. And I really haven't gotten really anything negative, which is great. I appreciate that. Like, somehow I have so far avoided like
That's
any
amazing.
Kind of
It
weird,
really is amazing.
Yeah,
like nothing. Like, I think like when you write about factual things, you're right or you're wrong, but like, people aren't gonna like lash out at you so much, or at least that's been my experience so far. Not that there's no reason to ever lash out at anyone. Like, it's all strange why people do that. But that's a whole other, subject. But, people just like send me like little like, funny things about like, people that, like, it was very funny when Yaddle ended up being for Valentine's Day, because like that was an accident, but it somehow seemed very perfect. I'm like, oh, Yaddle, like, but I just love seeing people's reactions to it. And like, people have been sending me, did you see this YouTube interview with this person? Like, or like, I wrote this article about this. And like, I'm happy to add all of that stuff onto the post. I think like, I want it to be kind of a place where people I want it to be like, I don't want it just to be like me writing about these people. Like, I want to have as many links to articles and YouTube videos and stuff like that as possible.
The
so
connections are amazing.
People. Yeah. And also, I mean, like, I have a whole list of like, I need to update like these various things, but I plan on doing that, for the whole project.
It's cool also how you've been not just putting out the link to your website or the little general information blurb on Twitter. You've also been connecting a couple other things and adding like little bonus details every once in a while that I've been finding pretty interesting. Yeah,
no, it's interesting because sometimes I want to like put everything, sometimes I want to tweet like 12 tweets a day about like this one person. Like, no. Like, I actually want people to go to the website and, read it. Like, and like, there's, it's not that many people actually are going to the website, which it's not going to hurt my feelings that much. But like, from what I can tell, from what I could track, like, not that many people are clicking on the links. And I would encourage people to do that, because I think that, I really am trying to put as much kind of bonus material in there. And for the Naboo Handmaidens, I created a page that was like, if you want to read all the Naboo Handmaidens on one page, like, here they all are. Cause I don't want any kind of like, I don't want people to feel like they have to like click a million times to, see the information on the website. And I'm hoping to do similar things like that, just so it's not just like, because like my articles are very, very short, and so like I understand that like clicking, all that clicking is kind of annoying. But
moving a mouse and left clicking is a lot of work. I understand.
It is
that. Exhausting.
Yeah.
Well, everybody hates those slideshows. Like when you like, I mean, like that's why like I always have like I have a January page and a February page, so I'm like, I'm not trying to trick you into clicking 30 times to see everyone in January. Like, it's a one-click land here, one click.
Right on. Yeah. And it's hard anymore with having an actual website, because it seems so many people are doing what's the equivalent of blog posts in that whole thread format.
Yeah.
And it's like almost makes me want to just not even write anymore and just do everything that way. But I just literally hate threads. They irritate me so bad.
You irrationally hate threads. Like, it's very strange.
Like, the whole point of Twitter is to be brief.
You see 2 tweets and you're just like,
oh, nope, not reading this.
I know. Yeah. It is very funny. And like, part of it is like, if no one looks at the website, like, that's fine. It's for me. Like, it's nice to kind of have I like the permanence of a blog post. Like, I for sure am with you though. I would much rather, like, if you have something to say about like The Last Jedi or like the Game of Thrones guys being, hired or any of that stuff, like, I pay way more attention to blog posts than I do Twitter threads.
Yeah, I don't read them on principle.
Like, but I think a lot of people are the exact opposite of us. But like,
I know. I think that's why they're so stupid.
But yeah, I'm
popular.
not a huge fan. Well, I'm not a huge fan of huge Twitter threads. Says the person who has like a January and February thread with like 30 tweets threaded.
It's different.
Different.
That's per day. That's pre-done. Like that. Never mind. It's different.
It's different.
Okay.
So, what are some of your key takeaways and learnings from this project so far? What have you realized, or things that you've really internalized so far in this process?
I think I didn't really appreciate like just how much Star Wars content there is. And like in so many cases, how characters, if you look at their kind of canon history and you look at their legends history, how interconnected it is, how messy it is. Like things like different actresses playing playing the same character just because of logistically, like it was easier, things like that kind of surprised me. Like with the Naboo handmaidens, like figuring out like why like these handmaidens are like kind of jumping out in the shot and you're like, oh my gosh, like they did pickup shots in like 2 different continents, like 6 months apart, like that's like how that happened, because who is weird enough to like pay attention? Well, it's me, it turns out, like I noticed.
Surprise.
Yeah. But I think that I really didn't, I always heard like there's so many great women in legends. There were so many great women in the books. There were so many great women in comics. And I think that there are. Like, I don't think that was an exaggeration. The more that I look into it, the more I wish I had time to, like, for every woman, I wish I could read all the books and read all the comics and, play the video games before I did their post. But really, I'm kind of doing everything I can in a very, very short amount of time and then kind of making my to-do reading list longer and longer and longer. So I'm set for the rest of my life.
Yeah, for sure. I think at this point, if Star Wars stopped, most people could take the rest of their lives and still consume something every day that was new and different to them.
Well, and it's interesting too, because a lot of people who are up to date on the comics will like be, I'll see them online or something like that in some sort of social conversation. We'll be talking about these characters and I'm like, like I didn't know who Dr. Aphra was until like, I feel like several months after.
Gasp.
I should have, I know. Oh my gosh, But, like, it was funny because I was like, I saw like, articles about like people cosplaying as her and stuff like that. I'm like, wait a minute, there's a whole comic? Like there's a whole comic that I didn't know about? But I think that that's just kind of, where we're at. I like was pretty low key in my Star Wars fandom for a very, very long time. And, a couple years ago, kind of The Force Awakens, my fandom awakened. And then the more I write about it, the more I kind of feel like, I should know what's going on. But you'll never know what's going on. There's always too much stuff that's going on. And it's fine. Like I think it's nice for people to pick a niche and, like this is where I'm going to spend most of my time.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a really good way to look at it. For a long time after the new canon came around, I was like, all right, I can do all of this now. And about a year and a half in, I was like, I can't Star Wars anymore. This is too much. I can't. So yeah.
That was great.
Thank you. That's anyway, so after all this, why don't you tell the good people of the internet where they can find out all about what you're doing and consume all of this great detailed information you've been putting together?
Sure. So the website is 365starwarswomen.com. On Twitter, you can follow the hashtag. Oh, let's see if if I know what it is. So it's hashtag 365 Star Wars Women. And then you can follow me on Twitter, Amy Richau. It's at AMYRICHAU. And yeah, I hope that, more people follow. Definitely feel free to like send me a note and, request a woman that you think might not be on my radar. I'm happy to, I find that very helpful, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. I bet there's all kinds of people out there, like you said before, that are like on pins and needles waiting for their favorite character to come up or someone else in Star Wars that they idolize.
As someone who is a relatively new Star Wars fan, I'm really enjoying it, and it's inspiring me to start kind of building my queue of content.
I'm glad. Yeah, no. Like, it's very funny. Like, people send me names and I immediately look it up and I'm always like, yes! Like, if I have it,
Score!
This is awesome,
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being on the podcast today, Amy.
Thank you for having me.
It was a blast.
We will talk to you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.